I started it. I started it.
You ready?
Yep.
I'm nervous about that. I got people that should be.
Hello, welcome guys to our first class here in Tulsa. This is our 3 of our 5 crypto with us team. My name is Jared Green. This is Kate Corbel, and Jim Nellick. And we're here to talk about what is the blockchain. And so we just wanted to take a couple minutes just to kind of introduce us and how we got here. And we really appreciate you guys being here. We know there's a few people coming in, parking and things like that. But we were just 5 guys here in Tulsa that became interested over the last year and a half in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Guys have been involved in it between the 5 of us. We do hold over 6 figures in cryptocurrency. So, you know, we try to say that just so that we speak with, you know, a little bit of knowledge about it. And as you get into the blockchain, and those who know some or little or nothing, realize that it's more than just cryptocurrency trading and more than just Bitcoin and more than just what it does for the businesses, but it's all encompassing. And so as we put this together, we wanted to try to build a community, starting in Tulsa, because that's where we all live here in Tulsa, around the blockchain technology. So I don't know, for those who've been to our website, we have a daily blog with a guy named John Miller who writes a daily blog, and it's really meant just to be daily news, right? What's going on? Is it the taxation of this? Is it the SEC regulation of it? What's going on with it? And the intent is to be an educational company. So we are not a financial company. We're not here to ever tell you what coins to buy or what crypto to buy or anything of that nature, but to be an education about blockchain and cryptocurrency. And so we're going to have future classes. I don't know if you've been to our website, but we have a 32 lesson long course titled Blockchain Academy. So it is as in-depth as you can get about the Blockchain Academy, as it walks through individual lessons on our website. We're going to have some others coming up about blockchain and business. How does it affect it? And then we're also going to, and you'll see a video at the end about it, we're going to do a crypto trading class that actually focuses on how do you set up a wallet, how do you actually own cryptocurrency, and we're going to do that in the future. But today, through a partnership or through 36 Degrees North allowing us to host this here, we're going to focus on what is blockchain. And blockchain is being called the 4th industrial revolution behind steam, electricity, computers, and now the blockchain. People can debate whether that's what it is or what it isn't, but it really is what we feel like revolutionizing business. And this is a very introductory class on what that is, and the 3 of us are going to cover that today. So we're going to have time for questions and everything. We really just want it to be open. We hope that we set up some sort of monthly type class here at 36 Degree North where it becomes more of like a conversation as people want to learn, as businesses are starting to come. My wife just sent me an email about 5 minutes ago, and it came from some of their executives at ConocoPhillips, and Accenture just presented on the blockchain to ConocoPhillips, and they actually focused on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Quorum, Ripple, and how it could impact their business. So please have questions. We will definitely want to be answering.
So again, we do have a mission statement there. We believe in the evolution of digital currency and the underlying technologies that make this societal shift possible. Our company is passionate about teaching and empowering you with the truth, because without education and knowledge around this, people will get left behind. And we'll touch on that a bit more, and that'll certainly be something that we'll also talk about in future classes as well. So, Jim, I'll let you take it from here.
All right, so just gonna set this over here. All right. We don't need this. So I guess to start off with, blockchain isn't anything completely new per se. It's a continuation of human history. So, you know, once upon a time in our civilization, we used to do things like barter. You barter your naturally grown agricultural goods in exchange for poultry or animals and so forth and so on. So bartering was a way of doing and providing industry and commerce and economy for a lot of folks. It then gradually moved to another phase where it started to move into the form of like, well, we need to have jobs, we need to pay our employees. And we had to have an institution that would help keep track of our goods and services and exchange of goods and services. And that's where banking started to come in. Now, one of the things about finance, one of the things about, I guess you could say, currency is its scalability. So going back to that first example I said about how naturally we were barters. When we started to switch to coins and gold and bronze and all these things, we would carry small ounces of it with us. It's not very scalable. I mean, once you get to a certain point, you can't carry a pound of gold with you everywhere you went. So what we started to do is we create currency, and that currency was in the form of the value associated with gold or its equivalent value. So, now in modern day time, we carry our credit cards around because we can't just walk around with a bag full of cash everywhere we go. And that's where the blockchain technology started to take off, where it's a scalable product. It's a technology that allows you to transfer millions of dollars from point A to point B, or millions of units of products from a consumer to a vendor to a company standpoint. And that scalability is done now online. So for instance, a good example is Amazon. So we all shop at Amazon. We go out there, we need to make a purchase really quick. Well, something of that size, of that nature, you want to be able to have the ease and accessibility, efficiency, transparency, and the flow from one point to another without having to worry about all the middlemen. So now we have a bank, we have a credit company, we have our credit Equifax, we have all these individuals in between section of point A to point B. And what the blockchain does as a whole is it scales it all down. It makes it much more transparent. Everyone has access to it. You have a better idea of what's happening from you, the person as a consumer, to the giant retailer that you're purchasing from. So, as I said, it's just a continuation of how we do transactions and commerce and economy. I'll change it to, there we go.
So why should you care? As a society, we constantly strive to lower uncertainty as much as possible so that we can exchange value for each other. And if there's anything, I guess, fundamentally that you guys take away from this today, it's this concept of trust, right? So for hundreds of years, economists have studied mankind's behavior, right? Because they want to know, like, how do they transact business? And fundamentally, from the beginning of time, in order for you and I to transact business, there has to be trust, right? Trust has to be established. Whether it was trading rocks or trading, baseball cards or buying a house, trust had to be there. And so over time, as we've added in this trust, it's added intermediaries or third parties, right? So in order for you and I to transact business, we've added a third party, right? We've added a bank to hold our money, to say that the money is safe. Or if I want to buy a house, if you and I want to buy a house, we've had to have a title company and an escrow company and lots of third parties to allow fundamentally you and I just to transact business. And that's all we're trying to do is transact business. But the issue of trust comes into play. And what you will see, and we hope that we exemplify some of that today, is that the blockchain is there to bridge that trust gap for business to exist.
So where are we going? I love this graphic, actually. This actually, in its entirety, encompasses what the blockchain is supposed to be doing. You see all these computers in circles, and you see individual users tethered to that computer. And so this is a good example of our current world that we live in, where every time we make a transaction, there is, between myself, the bank, and the end result, there is going to be no fewer than a multitude of enemies. So this animation, this graphic, it's not to say that banks are bad. Institutions such as banks aren't meant to be evil or taking over the world in a negative way. That's not what it's supposed to say. What it's supposed to encompass is when you make a transaction or when you try to take money out of your own bank account, you're going through so many layers of uncertainty, right? These layers of uncertainty makes us feel safe because we say, hey, I have my money in the bank is controlled by the government, there's an FDIC, there is this credit company that's associated with, all of these are layers and layers and layers of uncertainty. When put together, it creates this sense of security for us. So, in the blockchain history, so back in 2009, that's when the blockchain or Bitcoin, all they came together. And it was done by an entity known as Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who he is or who she is or who they are. All it was an expression as a white paper to say, hey, you know, the reason we had this massive financial collapse was because a lot of folks at the very top made some very irresponsible choices, and everyone at the other end of it was basically the victim. How can you streamline that? How can you create a model? How can you create this technology where, you know, we do not have to rely on so many middle people to exchange from one point to another? And in fact, right now, if you wanted to take money out of your bank account, if you want to push your funds from your bank account to Wall Street to buy stock, there's a period of like 3 to 5 days. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why it takes so many days for your funds to get settled and vice versa. It's because of the number of entities you have to go through. So Satoshi Nakamoto came up with the idea that, you know what, if we had a scalable ledger, if we had this electronic ledger, somewhere where every transaction is recorded and it's saved on every computer in a network. Everyone has access to it. It's public. You can download it. And if you have a strong enough computer, you can actually help finalize the algorithm, add to that block of information, and that closes that block down and goes on to the next transaction. So I try to tell people, I try to tell my 5-year-old nephew exactly what this was. It was 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 1 is 3, and then 3 + 1 is 4. Now, at some point, if I wanted to make that number, the last number 5, I would have to go back and change every other number in some sequence of form or manner in order for this number to be different. That's where the encryption and the stability and the cryptography all comes in. So I know not a lot of folks know what cryptography is, and they're not sure as to how cryptography works, but the way cryptography works is if I were to pass a note to Jared, and I want to make sure that only he alone can understand what my note says, we will have a key, a private key. That's my private piece of information. If I share it, that's essentially my identity. But that private key is in the form of 30 distinct characters, numerical values, alphabetical values, capsize values, whatever. 30 distinct characters that identify myself. Now, that key is inherent to myself and him, but we can share that. We can share it in the form of a cipher. So my note, as soon as I lock it with my key, is all encoded, and that note goes to Jared. Jared then takes his key out to unlock the message so only he can read it. That is the underlying premise of a blockchain, where it is built on this cryptography system. Now, taking that step back, that initial example I said, 1 + 1, 2 + 1, 3 + 1, so forth and so on. Each one of these blocks is just so many lines of code and algorithm that you have to compute now. And to do that, you require the aid of all the folks on that network. So we all have computers at home. Our computers may be fast, some people are slow. But if we put all of our computers together, we have far more computational power. I think we can all agree about that. Now, if I made a change, and this electronic ledger is in all of our possessions, if I change one number, it has to change across all the platforms. And in order for that change to happen, I would require all of your computing power to make that one change. So when you start talking about the scalable effect of this blockchain, it requires you to capture all of the computational power of all the computers on the server, on the network, across the world, in the hands of millions of people that are tracking and keeping a copy of this transaction, to hack all of it at once, take that computing power, and to focus it on one block or one line of code. Theoretically, sure, I'm sure there's going to be someone somewhere in the world that comes up with a way. But practicality-wise, it's not happening. It's, I wouldn't say impossible, nothing is impossible, but it's next to impossible. That's what creates this security within the blockchain. And that's why people say, oh, well, the blockchain is a myth. No, it's not a myth. It's just algorithmically and scientifically and engineering-oriented, computationally. It's very concise, very strong, robust. That's what creates the security of the blockchain. So whenever that paper came out, people were baffled by it. Like, what can that mean? What does that mean in terms of use? How you apply it? And it came out in the form of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we'd be remiss to not speak on Bitcoin to talk about blockchain, right? And so while the blockchain is a technology and there's 1,600 different cryptocurrencies right now, if we didn't speak of the first one and Bitcoin that is as widely known, then you'd be remiss to not speak to the blockchain. Yes?
You have questions now? Wait.
Wait, if you don't mind.
If you don't mind, yeah.
No problem.
Go.
Oh, so the Bitcoin, the very first, the one word you've been probably hearing for the last 9 months or so. It's been around since 2009, so it's not very old. It's just more recent than the other technological terms you've heard. And what Bitcoin was built on, what the purpose was to have a digital currency, some sort of digital architecture that allows me to say, hey, I'd like to make a purchase in Russia, or I'd like to make a purchase in Australia, and I want to buy that product. But rather than going through all these other channels, I just would like to give you my money, and I would like to get my product back in return. Seems pretty simple, and the simplicity was focused on the speed of expediting it, to make sure that it happened within a matter of minutes versus days and days and days. And that's what it was meant for. It was the first cryptocurrency, meaning that I would send Jared a request to say, hey, I would like to make this purchase. And in exchange, I am saying that this is my private key. This is how the actual encryption that happens, where the private key that is unique to you would access your Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is there's more to it in terms of how it's generated by mining and all these things. But we don't want to get too deep into that just yet. But I would say I have my private key, I send him my Bitcoins using my specific address, he gets it once, and that transaction is logged in the blockchain. It is now listed. It says there's a transaction from this unique user to the other user, and it is now recorded. Once that block of information, that block of algorithm is actually executed using all of our resources in the network, Jared would be like, okay, well, I will now send you your product. He gets his funds settled, I get my product. It's very simple. It's very much a basic platform. And then that white paper started to move around. And the white paper, the technical paper behind it stated that it doesn't have to be limited to currency. It doesn't have to be limited to any sort of just transactional loan. Now, let's take this a step further. So we all work for some sort of company or industry or business where things are never straightforward and streamlined and easy. There's always this hindrance, a block, a bottleneck, something that says, before I can do something, something else has to get done. Whether that's the person that's in charge of pricing, whether it's in charge of the contracts that we negotiate, whether it's the supply chain, whether it's the Uber rider that we have. There's always a layer. So this concept will be applied to blockchain is now applied to all these different spaces, all these different industries, all these different avenues. And we always come back to Bitcoin as the premier one because it was done in the form of a transaction. And is there a time? Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I was going to say one other thing on Bitcoin, right? Is there's lots of use cases for a digital currency, right? And people ask all the time, well, what's a use case for digital currency? And one thing I just wanted to mention is that you hear a lot about, we have a lot of immigrants that come to America, right, and work and send money back home to their family. And what does that entail? It entails Western Union. It entails a week, 2 weeks to get money home. A lot of fees, upwards of 15 and 20% at times to get money home. All the while, right now, in many countries, you can go and you can turn your fiat into Bitcoin, and you can send it in seconds to your family member in another country. They can meet with somebody local and exchange that for their local currency. And so Bitcoin, that's just one use case. The country of Venezuela is mostly using Bitcoin now as a national currency as their currency failed. And so people of value are accepting Bitcoin because they believe in it. And one other thing before Cade goes into blockchain around this concept of digital currencies, right? The Asian countries have accepted and valued digital currencies for many, many years. This isn't a new concept to them, right? Whether it was a better Warcraft sword or a better thing in a game, the idea that a digital currency has value to many other countries around the world has been here for many years. And I think if you follow technology, the US usually comes 2 to 3 to 4 years behind the rest of the country, and why 30% of South Korea owns digital currency and 1% of the US owns digital currency. Just as kind of a stat of how that flows.
So I chose to present the very elementary slide because I'm a visual guy and I need to break it down in simple terms. And if you're like me, when you first started trying to conceptualize what is this thing called the blockchain, our human minds are so limited sometimes that we can't think about it. I mean, think about the first time that one man walked up to another man or one woman walked up to another woman. One of them had a cow and the other one had a piece of paper that they were calling $1. And he said, I'll trade you this for that cow. And that guy who forever had realized value in things like cattle or land. He was like, no, man, you ain't getting my cow. I mean, you keep a piece of paper. Or in the early 90s, whenever people were telling you, you know, we're going to go away from this. And anytime you want to send a letter to somebody, it's going to be done online. We're like, no, that'll never take off, you know. So we have to step back and we have to try to break this down one by one. So I love this visual here. So basically, two people that want to exchange something of value with one another. It's easy for us as humans that live in America, we'll just say that, where capitalism seems to run everything. We'll use currency. So want to send money to A to B. Transactions, they got real creative when they named the blockchain. The transaction is actually represented online by a block. Jim kind of jumped ahead a little bit and was talking about that. So anytime you and I make a trade, that's represented as a block. The block is then broadcast to the party. It's a collection of computers worldwide that is constantly being worked on by people who are called miners. And we'll get into the job of the miners in later presentations and classes. But all eyes are on this. Those people, or let's just say Jim and I are wanting to exchange value, and you guys are running the computers worldwide, well, you're seeing everything that goes on, and you're going to approve this transaction before it goes through. Once it's been approved as valid, then the block can be added to the chain of blocks, or what for me was a little bit easier to think of as the never-ending ledger, and the never-ending visual ledger in the blockchain. And then eventually you've got the money that is successfully moved from A to B. Excuse me here. And it's always building on one another. So if you think about, I love Jim's illustration a minute ago, teaching his 5-year-old nephew about how to add one onto the other. If you ever want to go back and change this, and the one term that Jim, I don't think, brought up a minute ago, but that you may have heard before is called the double spin problem, or essentially we think of it as fraud. The blockchain was invented to solve the double spin problem. So A can never go back and use that money that he's already sent to B to exchange value with somebody else, because that value has already been locked in the blockchain in the series of links. So he would have to hack all the computers all the way back. So this visual kind of made it a little bit easier for me to understand. So it's like this, and that picture is not really representative of the story I'm going to tell, but you might like chicken McNuggets from McDonald's. Terribly unhealthy for you, but I like to eat them sometimes, especially when I was in college. Think about taking that chicken McNugget and turning it back into a chicken. Someday, somewhere, somebody will probably be able to do that, but for the foreseeable future, this level of security and unhackability is far better than anything that we've got right now. And I would urge you to go online. Our first ever on our YouTube page, our first ever video was titled, I think, "What is the Blockchain?" And there's a quote in there from Don Tapscott, who, if you've done any research about the blockchain, Don's kind of a forefront brain in that industry. He has a quote where he talks about turning the chicken McNugget back into a chicken, so I'll give him the credit for that. So if we think back to the 90s, like when the internet came out, we wanted to try to compare it to something, but it was unlike anything that we'd ever seen, so we couldn't compare it to anything. And the blockchain is really the internet 3.0, so it's kind of hard for us to think, well, how can this be something completely new that we've never seen before? Surely we've seen it all. In the day where I can literally run the world from this thing, how is there something that we still don't know about? Well, it's not a company. It's not an app. So don't compare it to any of these things that I know you all know all too well. So you may say, well, what is it like? Two things I like to compare it to. One, has anybody in here ever used Google Drive? Okay, a lot of people use Google Drive. Love it. The days of working with an outdated document are gone. Everything's on the cloud now, and you can even log in. If Jim and I are working on an Excel spreadsheet at the same time, I can log in and see where Jim's cursor is. He can see where my cursor is, and everything's live and current. That's one way to kind of think about the blockchain. The second is, it's a lot like Wikipedia. Wikipedia is, the information on that is not really owned by one person. It's owned by us all. It can be changed by us all. But the most powerful part of it is it also has to be validated by us all. And that is the power of Wikipedia. It's also the power of the blockchain. So, I'm going to transition back into Jim, but the next three things kind of take, the next 3 points Jim's going to make, kind of take this into the tangible, well, okay, how will this affect my life? And there's going to be 3 ways. It guarantees identity. It guarantees transparency, and in a way, it guarantees guarantees. And you'll understand that here more in a little bit in a minute, but just think about it in 3 ways. You're going to know who you're doing business with, you're going to know where the business process is, and then you're going to have the guarantee that the contract is real. I'm going to let Jim step into those one by one.
Yeah, I was going to further add to Cade's blockchain, right, from a visual standpoint, or try to make it a visual standpoint to you guys. As it's not just a currency, right, and it's easy to make it a currency because of Bitcoin, right, because people are using Bitcoin to transact value. But the blockchain isn't just about a currency. It's about what I talked about with trust in business, right? And one of the examples that I always like to use is the idea of real estate, right? It applies to everyone in the world, and the stat that I've heard and listening to one of the presentations was over 70% of the world's title work has problems. 30% of the title work in the US has problems, right? And that's because of trust, right? Governments can change titles. They can all of a sudden go to people and say, well, that title's not good. I have one back here in my file cabinet that is good. And now you have 2 titles. And so when you look at a situation of real estate and it being on the blockchain, a piece of land is there, and there's information about it, right? And it gets coded and it's put in a block. And then the next block, somebody decides to build a house on it. And so the builder adds stuff and people add stuff and a pool gets added and that block gets coded, right? And now those 2 blocks are attached to each other. And then somebody comes along and buys it, right? And I own it. And now I'm attached to the block. Now we have 3 blocks, which have become a chain. And now I want to sell my house to somebody. Well, all you have to do is go back and look and see, did I own it? Did I pay for it? Is there anything wrong with it? And in order for somebody to go and change something, right, if that house has gotten hit by a tornado or whatever, right, it's going to get logged in the blockchain. If I tried to go remove that, all of the miners or the people who have that would say, no, there's an error here, and they would tell you. And so that was just kind of a further example of when he talked about the chicken nugget and unwinding that. These blocks of information are all connected. And we'll talk about different examples and how that's starting to happen in food process. Walmart uses the blockchain for tracking strawberries from farm to store. Tyson is now using it to track their chickens from birth to later to prove what's going on with it. Those are just some examples. So I wanted to further kind of hit on what those blocks meant and chain amongst them.
Well, there's not a whole lot to add to that at that point. But I mean, that actually kind of encompasses everything I was going to lead into, which is how many of you buy stuff off of Amazon on a regular basis? So when you're searching for something, you just go immediately and type in, hey, I'm looking for dog food. And dog food pops up, there's like a billion of them. But then you start looking at the star rating and say, hey, which one has the best user review? And that's what we do today, right? We look at which product has the most users behind it, supporting its claim to value, whatever. And we do the same thing with eBay. We do it pretty much even on Uber. We use Lyft, or if you're using Uber, you have a rating associated with you. And that rating tells the person at the other end, what's your credibility, what's your trustworthiness, in minutes, it takes that level of uncertainty that you might have about the individual, and you shrink it down to where it's almost palpable. People want to try it out. And that's where this whole transparency factor and the whole uncertainty factor kind of come together. So I mentioned before that this ledger, the blockchain, is public, meaning that today, if you wanted to get involved and you wanted to become a miner, you will purchase your computer. Of course, now it's so far ahead of us in some spaces that you probably have to have a very strong computer coming into the foray, and you buy these additional components called mining equipment. And you can purchase them on eBay. You can go look for crypto miner, or you can look at blockchain mining machine. And all it is like a super-sized graphics card, and it has some features added to it so that it can run thousands and millions of computations simultaneously. So by having that hardware in front of you, and by connecting to the rest of the network, you get a copy of everything that's been done into your servers, and then now you can say, hey, I know exactly what's happened up until this moment. And every other bit of work I do in terms of processing that block of information, those algorithms, executing, putting it together, it will re-record itself back into the next block, and you are now officially part of the entire ecosphere. And that transparency is very clutch because it shrinks, once again, that cloud of uncertainty back down to a level where you feel more comfortable with it. And the guarantee. So, Jared actually gave a great example. I mean, that the marketing for contract and leasing and real estate, that's probably a great place to look at it. But, that's called smart contracts. So if anyone here has to deal with contracts, you as an individual, as a human, look at a contract and you make sometimes decisions based off of, well, the contract says this, but, depending on the person at the other end, I may make some allowances. We might get approval from our managers or bosses from the accounting group and say, well, they may not be able to execute this right now, but we need to give them some extra time. These are all the tangible aspects of humanity in a contract. Now, a smart contract takes that out. Now, where does a smart contract really come in handy? Whenever you're talking about business, large-scale business, or maybe even your own personal business, where you say, I need to make sure that my payment comes through within 30 days or within 10 days or whatever that period is for your days of service outstanding. A smart contract in place says, okay, it's an if, then, else statement. So you put your money in, you rendered your services, the contract being built in this chain goes through, takes into account every little thing that's happened, says, okay, it's met this objective, it's met this objective, it's met this objective, okay, on to the next one, on to the next one. And finally, your transaction is complete. In that scheme, no one is involved, no humans were involved. Now you can call that AI, and in some ways it is AI. But that guarantee from a business standpoint is immense. You can put a dollar figure on it. Actually, you can't. You can say, hey, my business is worth X millions of dollars a year, or X amount of dollars per month. I need to make sure that money comes in. I need to make sure that it's done appropriately without having to go back and do some sort of credit or some sort of negotiation or whatnot. And smart contract guarantees that. Now that's one sliver of a larger picture, but that's where that guarantee really comes in and becomes a financially tangible gain.
Sure. Jared, I'll let you bring us home.
Yeah, I think there's a few things to discuss. And I mean, like we said in the beginning, that the concept of the blockchain, digital currency, cryptocurrency, there's hundreds of classes, right? I probably have 300 to 400 personal hours of reading and reading blogs and watching videos and that amongst us all. And so we hope that we're creating a community that wants to continue to have further discussions, because the business aspect of it, right, really gets into where this is powerful in our lives. And I asked the question, like, how many in this room believe in AI technology and robotics being a part of our business, right? And somebody asked me, like, can the blockchain be real? And I said, if you believe in AI and you believe that robotics are starting to do things like check oil wells, right, and check pipelines and do those things and transact, how will computers transact business? Will it be with US dollars or the Mexican peso? Will they sign handwritten contracts? I don't believe so, right? And if we're all going to sit and say computers are truly changing the way we transact business, that AI is becoming involved with attorneys and lawyers and nurses and doctors, and we're letting AI do that, they're going to have a way for AI to transact business. And that is what is being shown as the blockchain because of that trust factor. And so that's one way applicable. The other way that I really have heard it explained is the internet. The internet was the internet of information. I mean, think as a kid when you had a question, right? You didn't always get an answer. You had to go, and mom would have said an encyclopedia, or go ask somebody who knew more than you did, and that's how you would get an answer. The internet brought the internet of information, and no more do we not know the answer to a question, right? But with that comes replication. and distrust, right? If I make a PDF and I send it to you and you send it to you and you send it to you and you send it to you, well, now we've replicated it. And that's fine with information. It's not fine for a store of value. It's not fine for a store of value. And so blockchain is being called the internet of value. And I hope that kind of stands out as what the blockchain is it takes that internet of information where it doesn't matter if I send the PDF to all of you, but you want to know if I send you a Bitcoin, that I didn't send him the same Bitcoin and him the same Bitcoin, or if I sold you my house or you my house, or I advertised this bottle of wine as came from this field with these grapes, you want to make certain that it actually did come from that field with those grapes. And that information, that internet of value, is what the blockchain is here to allow us to do, to transact value in a trusted environment. And it's known as a digital autonomous ledger, is what the blockchain is. And in closing, and I think we've kind of talked about it, the blockchain is not Bitcoin. It is not this cryptocurrency or Ripple or anything else. It is that distributed autonomous ledger to allow mankind to transact business in a new and trusted way without third parties, right? It's early. As I said, it's known right now that 1% of the US population owns cryptocurrency, while the rest of the world has numbers of the 30 to 40%. So it is a little different, right? And the quick story is when I was 17 years old, I was one of the first users on eBay selling. I was a high school kid and I was selling on eBay, and my parents told me this isn't real. The internet's going away. This isn't a job. You can't make money this way. And so you're going to face that right now, right? People say that it's not real and it's not going to be there. And so our goal and our intent is to hope to educate people, to build a community that they can come to our website, that they can learn from things that are going on in the daily blog, what's the government doing, and as well as moving into, if you want to own and invest in it, if you want to play in that we can help educate people. Because I will say, just in the last 2 days, we met a couple people, one who has two friends, and they both own over $250,000 in cryptocurrency. And they don't have it in a hardware wallet. They just have it on an exchange because that's where they thought. And so there's ways to lose that money if you're going to play in that space. There are ways to lose that, and there are ways to keep it safe. And we hope to be a company that allows you to learn to be involved with that. So it's education around that, around digital trading. We've got business cards to hand out and a survey, and we want to have questions. But we do really appreciate you guys coming here for one of what we saw as the first class in Tulsa around the blockchain. We are very new to this and to this business, and we're open to other partnerships or people coming to us. When we first met Grant, I said, maybe this is a way that brings the farmer out in the country who doesn't understand how the blockchain can affect him to the coder in Tulsa who's trying to figure out how to bring those parties together, right? That the business aspect of it, and from that standpoint, where can it go? So we really would love for you guys to follow us on YouTube, which is on our website, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you have any of that. We would love that. The YouTube videos and the daily blog, we hope you get information out of that. We had one video, is that coming up here?
Yeah, we did. I just wanted to take a second and thank 36 Degrees North as well for having us. It was awesome. We jumped right in here and pitched our idea, and they trusted us enough to let us come here and talk about this today. So thank you. We hope it ends up going well enough that we make this a regular engagement with you guys. I do want to play just a video for you real quick for those of you interested in maybe coming back and seeing what else that we have to educate people on. And go
real quick, I was going to say real quick before you play it. We intend to have a couple things, and one is we've got some information on what is blockchain in business, right, and how does it impact business, and we're hoping that we can do some of these like lunch classes and just allow people to talk about how does it impact business, talk about coins if they want to, talk about those things. But the other aspect, the thing that people, I feel like, are starting to clamor for is, how do I invest in it if I want to? How do I trade cryptocurrency? How do I open an account? How do I use a wallet? How do I use an exchange? What's an altcoin? Those things. And we are preparing to, we don't have the details today, we should, but we're going to have a paid class of how to trade cryptocurrency. For people who want to be walked through, it's going to be very hands-on, setting up accounts, walking through it, as well as everybody there, we're going to give them some cryptocurrency as part of being at the class. And so this is just a quick advertisement. The details will be on our website, as well as for everybody that came to this class, we're going to offer a pretty significant discount for coming to that class as well. So this little teaser video, that'll be up on our website as well. It'll be up on our social media sites also. So please share that with anybody that you think would be interested in that. I did. Yes. Yeah.
Can you show us how to the panel, how it works? Because that's the most interesting for me part is to see how you trade. Can you do the transaction? It's a sample of a transaction. Where do you log in? Because this, is very theoretical. I've never seen the actual transaction.
Yeah, so, from a full transparency standpoint, when we started to talk with 36 Degrees North and about what we could cover and what we could do, right? It's a very hot topic, right? People don't know, like, am I going to go to jail if I own cryptocurrency, right? How is the government going to handle it? It's a very difficult topic that people are dancing around. And so today's class was simply meant to be on the blockchain technology, right? And not to get into actually trading crypto. The class that we're going to hold is going to be fully live in trading crypto, like setting up an account, walking through what's Coinbase, what are the different exchanges, how do I fund that, right? How do I turn fiat currency or US dollars into cryptocurrency? How do I use cryptocurrency to buy other cryptocurrencies? And what do those mean? And so that class will be completely live, completely done, but our agreement for this was to just focus on the technology and not on the actual trading.
But is there any place that you can go online and see? Because I've seen a lot of presentations.
Absolutely. You can go on our website right now, and there are how-to videos of how to set up an account on Coinbase, how to buy on there.
You can see the panel how it looks.
Yeah. Yes. You can see it's done off my computer screen, walking you through how to do it. Those videos are up there, and that's exactly as we got started in it and started to learn. We just started watching YouTube videos, right? And for some people that's okay, and some people want to sit with somebody and do it and go over it and understand it. But yes, you can go to our website. We're going to hand out those cards. But great question.
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay.
You got to hit this one first. Yeah.
It's no problem, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You talk about trust.
Yes.
And a few weeks ago, some hackers took over the computer farm and high-speed computer of SpaceX and generate mining Bitcoin.
Sure.
Who owns what?
You're saying who?
They generate Bitcoin using something they store.
Oh.
They're using basically they were hacking.
They use their computers and now they own the Bitcoin.
Use their cloud.
So, they own the Bitcoin now, right? Just like the people who hacked Mt. Gox own the Bitcoin after they did that. I think there's going to need to be significant amounts of failures in this, right? As we go through this, just like the internet, 95% of those internet companies went out of business and weren't real, right? People were buying those companies like pets.com and they were worth nothing. I think you're going to see the similar, right? Like that's a situation where they took advantage of someone else and that's out there.
Yeah, that's my question is, doing that, they have generated
Bitcoins, right?
And by generating illegally Bitcoin, what they do, they reduce the value of my Bitcoin.
Yes and no. So Bitcoin, I mean, it isn't really, because if you look at Bitcoin kind of like gold, right? If I steal his gold, your gold doesn't go down in value, right? And
now,
so
that is not gold which is created out of nothing. There, it's something which is created out of nothing. You know, Bitcoins are not backed up by something physical.
that's
So it's virtual.
they're only, and you're right, and that's with anything in this world, something only has value if somebody says it has value, right? And so I can see your perspective from that. I don't know that I have an answer to that, right? Of whether it's going to reduce the value or it's not. We don't know where it's going to head from that.
Just one thing to add to that. The reason that, so in terms of security, I made this comment about the key that you have, your private identification. 80% of the reason why these hacks happen within this space right now is because of folks and individuals not taking that proper measure, which is like a very small step you gotta take in the right direction to secure your assets with you. And that sounds, he mentioned a hard wallet versus a digital wallet, and there's a thing called a paper wallet. Having that in your possessions is the difference between you losing everything and holding on to it. So going back to the sense about uncertainty, that's what happens. The Mount Gox, the one you're talking about with SpaceX, it is because there are so many individuals that are very new to this space. Now, if I told you who here buys and sells stock on like Charles Schwab or Ameritrade, you don't take your stock out of Ameritrade and put it into some sort of special wallet. You leave it on that exchange. That exchange is being monitored and regulated by Wall Street and the different brokerage firms that are into it. See, we haven't reached that level. The space is actually very new. So the biggest part of it is safeguarding that anonymous private.
It is very risky. Yes.
Okay, basically, since we're talking theoretical, let's talk about that. His point is that there is no satisfactory right now error resolution protocol. If I, through phishing, scam, or whatever, get his personal information key that he was talking about, right, I can impersonate him.
Correct.
And there's no way to un-impersonate.
Correct.
And that's the risk.
It absolutely, I mean, that's the beautiful and the risk part of it, right? The beautiful is it can't be changed. The risk is if you don't know and you're uneducated, you lose that.
And the other thing, the question I was going to ask was a similar sort of question is the problem that we're basing all of this on, and the encryption keys, et cetera, for each of the currencies or other uses of funds are basically solvable by fast forwarding transfer. And that's what all of the miners are using, is these specialized chips that do really fast teraflop, fast Fourier transforms to solve their problems. If somebody finds a mathematical solution, all of a sudden everything's working.
Sure.
So that's the other key risk.
Oh yeah, if somebody proves that, yes, that it's mathematically what they're saying isn't possible, then yeah, then the whole thing is
Not
gone.
that it isn't possible, but it's just easier to solve. I'm thinking like Bayesian versus Talus entropy, for example. You know, after 2007, problems that were supposedly insoluble are now easily solved. Similar sort of question.
Yes.
I guess they're kind of related. That a lot of what I've read is talking about the speed. In fact, he mentioned it about the capacity of the hardware to process transactions. But what the question that I haven't really figured out is that you mentioned that, quote, everybody needs to approve a transaction. How is that? I mean, what does that really mean? I mean, if you got all these servers out here and all this. Who is approving a transaction? Number two, related to that is the speed, you know.
So I think if I understand it correctly, and those who may know more, so we're not, I won't say I'm the technical expert on everything, and there may be people here far more technical, right? We're trying to exactly do this, bring people together. We hope to eventually have people as part of our team that are the coding side of things. But what I believe is they're running like a proof of work statement, right? That goes out and proves that it's mathematically impossible or possible for this thing to happen. And each cryptocurrency determines different amounts, right? So you hear Bitcoin's very expensive because it's like writing "I will not talk in class" 5,000 times on the chalkboard. Well, you probably could have written it 5 times and it would have accomplished the same thing, right? And so as you're starting to see new blockchain or cryptocurrencies, they're coming up with their own proof of work or proof of stake deals to prove that. So that the miners are competing to say, my computer ran, you're good. 5 of us do it, then you're good, right? Or maybe this company says, I need 8 people. That's
yeah, that was just really curious about that.
Yes.
You mentioned like not necessarily being an expert with code. How do those of us who are fairly illiterate with programming and software engineering, how do we evaluate between different cryptocurrencies and different blockchain technologies, like the thousands that Jim mentioned were out there?
That's probably one of the greatest questions that exists right now, right? It's all I can say is research and educate yourself, right? You're right, there are 1,600 plus cryptocurrencies today and hundreds being added every day. This is, to me, no different than the early 90s and the internet. You had companies that were coming out, and because they were live, they became instantly worth value, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars or $1 billion. And at the end of the day, there was only one Amazon and one Facebook and one Google. I mean, even Yahoo was set to not be able to take down. And Warren Buffett said Google couldn't exist because of its algorithm, and here it is. So we face this every day, right? And so we found ourselves having these conversations, and I think to answer it shortly, what we try to do personally is what business problem does it solve, right? Does it solve a real world problem, or is it CryptoKitties, right? It's just an online CryptoKitty. So does it solve a real world problem? What is their backing? Who backs it? You know, there's one out there, Vin, where their CEO was the former CEO of Louis Vuitton China, and now he's running Vin. That's a little different than like somebody in their backyard starting a crypto company. And third thing that I think really is important to look at is how much money do they have to back them, right? Do they have 5 to 7 years worth of runway, or do they have 3 months worth of runway? Because this isn't going to happen tomorrow. We're probably 3 to 5 years from tangible, executable business changing the world. And you're going to see, you know, most of those companies go out. But those are the 3 things that I think we tend to look at when we do it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, does the size of an existing chain affect the speed at which you can add to it or read it?
No, so that's where I wanted to ask that question really quick. So you talked about speeds and blocks. So for Bitcoin specifically, it takes 10 minutes for a block to actually get completed. Now Ripple is the reason that Ripple, another coin that's actually better or more in the space, is because it takes 4 minutes. There's an exact amount of time allocation required by all of the processing power that's available at your fingertips to execute. So it's a time versus hardware versus speed correlation. I'm sure there's a chart for that. But does the size of it matter? Yeah, in terms of the user base. So you said, you know, does the size of a blockchain matter? Yeah. So going back to my first example, if I were to get into this space right now, I better have a hardware system that's capable of taking in teraflops worth of information. That's why, yes, now you have to move server farms. A single machine alone will not prevail. I mean, it'll work. It'll just take a very long time to execute one transaction or one block, one portion of the block. That's why server farms are out there now in China, North Korea, Canada, South Korea, all these other parts of the world. But you need all of those. You need that to help consolidate that time, that window of time. So 10 minutes is what they take for Bitcoin. And so, but yeah, if you have a farm that can support that, then yeah, you shouldn't have an issue in terms of adding onto that block and subsequent and so forth.
But you're absolutely right in that the size of the block. And that's also while you're seeing what are called like off-chain scaling solutions that are being created to allow those technologies to off-chain and scale, right? You have Neo, and there's an off-chain scaling solution called Trinity that is meant to allow it to move faster. Ethereum is the technology, and Raiden is an off-chain scaling solution that's going to allow Ethereum to move forward. And Amise Go, right? Amise Go is a off-chain scaling for a blockchain that McDonald's in Thailand now process all their payments with Amise Go in all of Thailand using that blockchain, using that crypto.
And that one's serving, I got you, we're coming to you right now, but that one solves a real world problem. So this is one that when we all started, hanging out over the last year and kicking this around, we all kind of dove in and picked an altcoin that we were going to research on. And that one is one that's really cool. Based in Bangkok, but is really focused on Southeast Asia, because I'm just going to make the brave assumption that most everyone in here has a driver's license. Most everyone in here has a social security number, which are things that you need to go to the bank and open up a checking account so you can send money. We quickly forget that there's a lot of people in Southeast Asia that don't even know when their birthday was or where they're from or things like that. And so if you don't have that kind of information, you can't walk into a centralized system like banks as we know them today and set up an account to be able to transact money. Well, that's a real problem for an immigrant dad who's working in Malaysia trying to send money back home to his kids in Chiang Mai or something like that. So these are real companies solving real world problems, and that's an offshoot of the Ethereum chain. Yes, ma'am.
I'm interested in the energy piece as this happens, and if that's not one of the places to invest in terms of what's it going to do to energy and
Jim?
how we.
So right now, there's actual green cryptocurrencies you want to. So I mentioned a server farm, right? So anyone that's kind of working at home with their computer, your electric bill kind of goes through the roof. You're sitting online all day long, all the time. Now imagine the amount of energy it takes to drive a server farm. There's a reason why these server farms are in other countries outside of the United States, because of the access to like coal energy, for instance. So China uses coal. Coal is very cheap out there. So they can use that to help drive these massive farms. So to answer your question, how does this have an impact on energy? It does. It has a huge impact on energy, because depending on what conduit you're using to implement, or whatever conduit you're using to feed your fuel to run this train, that's going to cost you so much. So then the question becomes, how valuable is the cryptocurrency at the end of it, right? I mean, if you're talking about solar energy, that's cheap, it's free. Now, if you have enough solar farms to supplement you with the energy needed to drive the solar farm for this server farm, your overhead cost has shrunk considerably. And what is that effect on a government, on a country? Actually, it's probably in their favor, because they had to spend nothing out of pocket, yet this thing is driven by something that's free versus coal, or in some cases, natural gas is very far down the road. We don't have the infrastructure in place for that just yet.
I wanted to go real quick just on a different tangent with the energy, right? Because Jim took it as the energy to mine this, right, to make it.
Before you go off on that tangent, it's 5 till 1. I know you guys are all business professionals. We're going to be here for a while answering questions, but I just want to be respectful for everybody's time. Before you leave, because I can see some people kind of starting to sneak out the back, grab one of these and leave your survey with us if you don't mind. I know a lot of you, we already got your name and email on our website, but if you would, just leave it on this table right here would be a great spot. And I'm going to put this stack of business cards right here. This has got everything that last slide had on there. I just know some of you have to get back to work this afternoon. We want to be respectful of that, but we're not leaving anytime soon. So take up where
I was going to say another avenue of energy is going to be blockchain companies that solve an energy problem, right? That solve an oil and gas problem, right? And maybe that is looking at the wellheads or running pipeline, and how do they use the blockchain to communicate immediately back, right? Well, because of the way the blockchain and the cryptocurrency world works, right? It's decentralized. So you're not paying any one company for their service. You're paying all of the people that hold that cryptocurrency or whatever that makes the blockchain work. And I know that's a little deep, but I would say start to follow, right? Like what companies are being involved, what companies are working with an oil and gas company or a power company, and what problem are they looking to solve in that industry. would be kind of a thought.
Two back here, I saw you. Oh, go ahead.
Back to Jim's point, the largest server farm for mining is in Oregon, where they have the hydroelectric power.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I like your real estate example, how you have a land, built a house, put a pool in, and that creates that change.
Sure.
What keeps someone, and not disparaging Malaysia, but just you mentioned it, someone in Malaysia putting a fake block, the computer is built, and then the computer is shipped to the distributor, and the distributor is creating a fake blockchain. Then I purchased this computer because I see a fraudulent blockchain created somewhere.
So that is a kind of a redundant statement, because you can't create a false blockchain. Now, that computer, if you were to purchase it, all it means is up until some point, it's kept a copy of the ongoing blockchain. So as soon as you get back online, the rest of it populates up. You can't just simply isolate an incomplete block, I guess you'd say, and add that into the string, because it's going to go back to where it came from. It can't just simply, you can't replicate it, right? I mean, this is a non-replicatable information block. It's all tied together.
Somebody tries to change the block, the miners will tell
I
you.
think you're asking, like, what if you had a band of people that tried to create an entirely fraudulent blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, of course I do, like everybody. Like if I say, like right now, I'm not making a computer, but can I go on and go, I have a new computer I'm selling, and put a block up there that says, I have a computer for sale, and, not connected to anything else, like parts.
So,
Is that possible?
No, sorry. Go.
I was gonna say, it's more, so there's a million ways, right, that the blockchain can affect commerce. And it would, the example, I think we're trying to blend two things into like an impossible situation almost. And it would more be like, the blockchain was used for like inventory management, right? Or something of that nature, then you're going to create a blockchain. It's really tracking inventory or where it came from or who made it or things. I mean, there's a story out there, we may post it on our website, or something called Then, and it's called My Story. And it's going to have a QR code. They're working with an Italian wine manufacturer in Italy. And that QR code will tell you everything about that bottle of wine from start to finish. And so if you wanted to, I guess, fake that, right? And you wanted to create, I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to build a computer and I want to be a company. Yeah, I think the answer is yes, that can be done, but it'll quickly be known that anything from that isn't real, right? I mean, that exists today. I mean, we have people creating cryptocurrencies in their basement right now. And that's what I'm saying, be very, very careful in this space. This is just like 1990s when someone's like, oh, I have pets.com and I raised a bunch of money and now you bought it at $100 a share and tomorrow it's worth $0. That's a very similar because of situations like that.
Yeah, hold on, just like have one right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this might be going back to the really basics. So I kind of had to jump off the real estate and the mining example. Who is responsible for inputting that information into the blockchain, and what kind of manpower and skills are required for, the farmer who's growing the grapes? He's in this field, he's got to get this information, verify in the blockchain that the grapes are in the field.
So I would say that's where like Jared made the analogy a minute ago of, we have a vision of marrying people like Grant and coders and people that work here in more of the tech space of downtown Tulsa, with the sod farmer in Bixby. And I like to think of it back, if you go back to the early 1990s, if someone said, hey, open up a computer right now and log on and sell that marker on eBay. That would have been a very daunting task. So as this continues to move forward and coders begin to put things in more user-friendly platforms, I envision it becoming more like logging on to bodog.com and, not Bodog, BoDaddy.com, or what's the GoDaddy.com. All over the place. Bodog's the gambling site. How did I know that? So that's made web space building very easy for the
They're called decentralized apps.
Yeah.
So people are making them. Right. Ultimately, right, it's all gonna revolve around this in some fashion, right? Whether it's scanning a picture of the sod or the fertilizer that comes on. I don't have an answer. And
QR codes is one of the things that's leading the way right now. That's like what Walmart, we gave this example of Walmart and strawberries. Strawberries just happens to be the first product that Walmart chose to try out on the blockchain. And so now every crate of strawberries comes in that has got a QR code on it that takes the information all the way back in the blockchain to not only what farm, but what row and what plot that bush came off of, or so down to the bush that berry came off of.
Does that require an extreme amount of manpower? I mean, I think there's going to be somebody there who's going to input that, whether it's a picture or not.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not intended to replace. I mean, it's not a manpower replacement, right? It's a trust, and there's a video on YouTube, and the guy talks about his love for tangerines, and in order for him to eat tangerines, he has to know he gets an organic tangerine that doesn't have a certain chemical on it, and all he has to trust is a sticker that someone put on there that says organic. Well, what if my 6-year-old walked in that store and moved that sticker to that orange? Now all of a sudden he dies. And the intent of if in the food industry is for you to know without certainty, to know for sure that everything about that is what it said it is. How we're going to get there, and to solve your question, I don't know, and nobody knows that, right? We're in 1990 when somebody said, oh my God, I can send an email, and it takes me 15 minutes to write the code necessary to send an email. Not for 9, 7, 8 years did somebody actually build the functionality that you and I can use today to send an email. It used to take that, and we're there, right? Websites, there were 3, and then there were 6, and we're there with blockchain. They've come out and they've said, blockchain can change the world. Now, how's it gonna do it? That's what all these cryptocurrency companies are out competing for, right? To say, I have an app that's better than your app. My app works with the farmer easier, faster, that situation. And that's why I said we're 3 to 5 years probably away from where you will see it in your daily life that, oh, the blockchain affects my life. Right now, we're in a very early stage, which is, again, why only 1% of the entire US population owns cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I want to add, I think I'm going to help clear up the key situation, because that was a very confusing part whenever I got into cryptocurrency and blockchain, is what you have a private key and a public key, and what do those mean, and how can I relate that simple to my world, in my life, right? So, because most of the hacking and the thing you hear about people's money being taken, right, cryptocurrency, is because they didn't protect their key, okay? So just think of it this simple. Yeah, most of us, a lot of us have a house, and that house has value, a lot of value, right? We have an address. Someone wants to send me something, they send it to the address. Well, that's just to get it there, right? I'm the only one that has a key to my house to get in my house and have it, all my stuff and all my things that are of value. If I give you my key, you can get in my house. So I don't give you my key. That's simple, right? I don't go around all day worrying about someone breaking in my house because they found my key, because I have my key, you know? And so people don't protect their key, is what's happening. They give their key and just have it sitting on an exchange and say, yes, I trust you to take care of my key. Here you go. So it's once you understand that, getting it off, you have your own physical key. That's what protects your asset, because they can't get it unless they have your key. And the only way they have your key is if you give it to them. So just wanted to throw that out and help.
So cautionary carry on trading, right? When you look at Bitcoin or Ether or Ripple, the value of it is what you pay for it or the utility you get out of it. So you then fast forward to what he talked about Walmart. They've implemented blockchain. It's not using any of those technologies because they're not going to pay people who have already invested on that. So when you think of companies investing in blockchain, the cost of entry is relatively low. We know there's a power issue. They're going to figure out a way to solve that. So power is not going to be an issue. You have to be careful about what you're going to invest in and for what period of time. So if Amazon decides to do a coin for all of their marketplace, it has a great utility, it'll have great value, the things like Bitcoin will just disappear.
So one quick follow-up to that. So every coin out there has a white paper associated with it. So if you find something out there as researchable on, and this grabs your attention, remember, every one of these coins or cryptocurrency or the blockchain has a white paper associated with it. It's actually one of the first steps of everything you have to take. So if you understand that degree of complexity in literature, great. If you don't, there's always another aspect, there's other ways to find what that consolidates down to. And some of us know how to read the white papers pretty quick, so we actually built a lot around that.
At the end of the day, these will only have value if they have value, right? If they solve a problem or if people want them, right? And that will be what gives it value, right? And that's where, people said for years and years, Amazon cannot lose money for a decade. Well, here we are, they did, and now they make money, and they're so integrated into our life that they became valuable, right? And so the majority of these blockchain or cryptocurrency things, like you said, they're not going to have value. But there are going to be some that do, that somebody in a private sector mainstreams and companies say, you did that better than I did. And I want to use your blockchain to run my business, to do this, because they can't be masters and experts at everything. And so are we there yet? Is Bitcoin MySpace or Facebook? Who knows, right? Is it either? Does it necessarily going to end like that? And I don't think any of us know what that is. And that's why educating yourself, so that we've all said we hope to understand as these different cryptocurrencies come and go, that you can recognize, right? If you understand blockchain and you understand business and you understand, man, that really is Amazon. That really does solve a problem that exists today, then maybe you want to invest in it. And maybe you never do, right? Maybe it's never, that there are people that still today don't hold any internet company stocks, right? Google's still just an algorithm, and they don't own it. And that's everyone's personal choice as to whether that's something they want to ever have. Because like you said, that's exactly, somebody else creates a better widget, this one's not important anymore. All right, thank you guys. We hope you enjoyed it. It was somewhat informational, and we'd love to have you back.